Good evening, it's Saturday the 17th of May. You're tuned in to our 10 p.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's News Centre in Seoul. Our top story this evening: more than 1 month has now passed since the Sewol-ho ferry, packed with hundreds of mostly young high school students, capsized off Korea's southwestern coast. The search operations continue on this Saturday night to find the more than 12 people still missing 32 days after the accident. Weather conditions off Jindo Island have been favourable with light winds and calm seas. However, as sea currents are pretty strong, search operations have been limited to certain time windows and are being focused on the 4th floor cabins and 3rd floor kitchen. More than 1.9 million people have visited over 120 memorial altars set up nationwide since the tragic accident. And the largest scale mass rally yet, organised by hundreds of civic organisations in tribute to the victims and also in protest to the government response, began in central Seoul at 6 p.m. Korea time on this Saturday, with some 30,000 citizens taking part. Now, turning to the criminal probe into what caused the sinking, the head of the shadowy family network that owned the Sewol-ho ferry is the focus of the investigation after he ignored a summons to appear for questioning on Friday. Yoo Byung-an is presumed to be hiding inside a compound run by his religious cult, Park Ji-won reports.
The ongoing investigation is now focusing on the de facto owner of the sunken ferry operator, Yoo Byung-an. The 73-year-old is suspected of malpractice, tax evasion, and the embezzlement of millions of dollars from company affiliates owned by him and direct members of his family. This includes the operator of the Sewol-ho ferry, Changhae-jin Marine Company. Huge sums of money from the death-stricken ferry operators' revenues went straight to the Yoo family's pockets without any clear reason. Prosecutors suspect this could have been one of the reasons why the ferry operator failed to invest enough money on safety and personnel management, which ultimately led the ferry to sink. As Yoo Byung-an ignored prosecutors' summons Friday, investigators have requested a warrant for his arrest. Prosecutors are not yet considering how to bring him in forcefully. Instead, they are waiting to see whether he will voluntarily show up for a court hearing scheduled on Tuesday to determine the arrest warrant's validity. If Yoo doesn't show up on Tuesday, a warrant for his arrest will almost certainly be issued. Yoo Byung-an is believed to be holed up inside his religious compound in Anseong, Gyeonggi-do Province. Around 1,000 members of Yoo's cult have surrounded the estate in protest of ongoing investigation. 2,000 more are expected to arrive at the site to attend its weekend service. Authorities are worried they will try and act as a human shield in an attempt to try and prevent officers from forcefully gaining access to the compound sometime next week. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
A military plane carrying senior Laotian government officials has crashed in the north of the country, leaving at least 5 people dead. The plane came down near the border with Vietnam, nearly 500 kilometers from the capital Vientiane, where the flight departed from. Local officials say 2 top figures in the security apparatus of the authoritarian government, the Deputy Prime Minister Do Wang-che Pijit and Thongbae Sengaphon, the Minister of Public Security, were among the dead. Watchers say the loss of arguably the 2 most powerful people in the security apparatus will be a significant blow to a communist party that relies on force and intimidation to stay in power. No word yet on what caused the Russian-made plane to crash. And you're looking at state television in Laos. It broadcasts some footage of rescue workers recovering debris from the aircraft that crashed in very thick jungle. Now, it's been a really staggering undertaking in the world's biggest democracy after 5 weeks of voting and more than 500 million ballots counted. India now has a new government. The victory by the Bharatiya Janata Party and its leader, Narendra Modi, had been widely predicted, but what hadn't was the scale of the landslide. With almost all seats declared, Modi's BJP looks set to win 282 seats, 10 more than the majority required to rule. With its allied parties, it's heading for a tally of around 337. Modi's party has the first outright majority for a single party in 3 decades, and it represents a seismic political shift in India. Outgoing Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has resigned now, and he's going to make way for the formation of the government, which will come next week. Now, in economic news, the patent war rages on between Samsung and Apple, but the US-based iPhone maker has called a truce with Google's Motorola Mobility unit. In a joint statement Friday, the two tech giants said they had agreed to dismiss lawsuits they had brought against each other over patents, and they would work together in some areas of patent reform. The agreement, however, does not include licensing their technology to each other. Up until this deal, Apple and Google were locked in more than a dozen lawsuits against each other in the US and in Europe. Google bought Motorola Mobility in 2012 for $12.5 billion, and this year Google announced it was selling Motorola Mobility's handset business to a Chinese company, but keeping the vast majority of the patents. Now, back here in Korea, and there's more evidence of the great wage disparity we see in this country. A new report shows more than 50% of salaried workers in the country earn less than $2,000 a month. You probably won't be that surprised to hear workers in the finance and technology sector are paid a whole lot more than that. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
1 in 2 wage workers in Korea earns less than 2 million won, or around $1,940 a month. This according to a recent report by Statistics Korea. In a survey conducted on some 18.5 million wage workers who were employed in the second half of last year, 37.5% said they earn between $970 and $1,940 each month. Those who made less than $970 stood at almost 13%. 24% said they earned between $1,940 and $2,900 each month, while 13% made between $2,900 and $3,880. Some 12% took home more than $3,880. The highest paid workers were employed in the finance, insurance, and science and technology sectors. About 3 out of 10 workers in these sectors earned more than $3,800 each month. Workers in the agriculture and fisheries sector earned the lowest. About 57% said they earned less than $1,000 each month. Only 3% said they earned more than $3,800. By gender, males accounted for the great majority of those working in the engineering, shipping, and construction industries. Women made up for more than 60% in the service, education, health, and welfare sectors. A total of 25.5 million people had jobs in the second half of last year. The majority were employed in the manufacturing sector, followed in line by the retail and accommodations and dining industries. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Now, Braille is still one of the main ways people with visual impairments read and learn about the world. Some 200 years after its introduction, a technology that could be equally, if not more, groundbreaking has been developed by researchers right here in Korea. They've come up with a 3D printer that promises to help visually impaired children expand their understanding of most things in the world. Our Son Jung-in reports.
Visually impaired students in this social studies class are learning about the territorial expansion during the Three Kingdoms period of Korea. Previously, they would have had to rely mostly on their imaginations. Now they can picture the precise changes in territory using their tactile senses. Local researchers have developed a printer that produces a 3-dimensional replica made of plastic for use in school textbooks. These touchable pictures made specifically for the blind are the product of a relatively simple process. It takes just 30 minutes to produce a map the size of a palm.
I noticed how students were able to picture the details better with the new 3D maps compared to the old ones, helping them comprehend the lesson better.
The previous 3D pictures were made by overlapping layers one at a time, resulting in a rough surface that came off easily. However, the 3D printer produces a much safer and durable representation.
The printer treats the exterior with heat, which makes the surface smoother and stronger. It means the visually impaired students will be able to use it safely for a longer period of time.
The Korea Institute of Science and Technology has signed an agreement with the Seoul National School for the Blind and the Korea Braille Library to produce school textbooks with touchable pictures for social studies and science classes by the end of the year. 3D printers, considered to be the third industrial revolution, have opened up a new window for the blind so they can explore much more of the world than they could before. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
Okay, and before we go, a brief check on your weekend weather. Much of the country will be under clear skies tonight, with the overnight low dipping to 11 degrees Celsius in Seoul. More clear and sunny skies are in the forecast for Sunday. Daytime highs nationwide will be in the high 20s to low 30s. Let's take a look at the weather wherever you are in the world. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest stories, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.